think we're good. Okay, I will call to order this regular January monthly meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees. Happy New Year to everyone. Are there any changes to the agenda? No changes to the agenda. I will just note that Trustee Carver will be coming shortly. He let me know that he's running about 15 minutes late, but did not want us to hold up the meeting for him, so we appreciate that. Item number 3 on the agenda is approval of our December 9th minutes, which are in the Dropbox. If anyone would like to make any changes, please let us know. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes from December 9th, 2019.
Second.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's clumsily done.
Any further discussion or desired changes?
I'm going to abstain.
I don't know if this matters, but I saw that Morgan was excused, but then prepared the minutes, which I think is totally fine.
No, it's fine. It's
Okay.
exactly how it happened. She used my notes from the December meeting.
Just one.
Thank you.
All of it.
The only edit I would need an executive session motion in here somewhere. No, just edit it to include the executive session for personnel interviews.
Okay.
Any additional changes, edits? If not, then all in favor of approving the December 9th, 2019 Village Board minutes as edited, please say aye. Okay, item number 4 on the agenda is our first public comment period, which we have 15 minutes allocated for. If there are any members of the public who are not already on the agenda who would like to comment on anything publicly, then this would be the time. Going once.
Actually, so Jessica Giles on 9 Big Street, but also chair of the planning board, and we were wondering maybe at Dartmouth, you might be able to come to the next planning board meeting to speak about the comprehensive plan and zoning revision update. But I can also send you an email, but we, the planning board is now taking great opportunity of their availability and agenda and are going to focus on something that's been on our mind we haven't had opportunity to talk about. And we're wondering how we can be most.
Sure. Yes, shoot me an email.
Okay,
I'm not sure I actually, there it is. It's next.
and anyone
Like,
else?
yeah, please send me.
Okay, and if you can, right?
Yeah.
Last minute. Okay, great, thank you.
Your meeting is
Next Thursday.
23rd or 30th? 23rd.
Thank
On
you.
the calendar.
Is the CPZR hashtag trending yet?
We're working on it.
Give it time.
That's a good goal.
We got coverage. Got some good press.
That's right. That's very nice.
We're working on it.
Well deserved.
Any other questions or comments from members of the public in attendance? Going twice. All right, hearing none, I will move on to item number 5 on the agenda, which is our fiscal 2018-19 audit and financial report prepared by Dwayne Schoen of Vincero and Company. Dwayne, good to see you,
Good to see you.
and the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Thank you for a few minutes this evening to review the results of the audit. I placed in front of you draft financial statements. These will be finalized after the meeting this evening and after a couple of loose ends that just need to get tied up, but there won't be any changes reflected here. What you have in front of you is a couple of letters and then the financial statements themselves. The letters are on top, so I'll cover those first. The first letter is a communication letter. Auditing standards require us to communicate certain aspects of the audit with those charged with governance, is the terminology we use, which means you, the board. So we're required to communicate certain aspects of the audit at the conclusion of the audit process. Most of this letter is pretty boilerplate language. There were no changes in accounting standards during the year, so there were no changes to the village's accounting standards and policies. We always evaluate accounting estimates for reasonableness for year to year. We evaluate the assumptions that are behind those estimates, and we didn't have any comments or concerns with respect to those estimates. Disclosures, footnotes that are part of the financial statements are also evaluated by us for consistency, for comparability from year to year, and we didn't have any comments of concern there either. No significant difficulties in the conduct of the audit. Beginning on page 2 and continuing on page 3 are a list of some of the adjustments that we made during the audit process. Most of these audit adjustments are made from really, I guess, 3 different overarching things. Number one, the closing and the finalization of some of the EFC projects that have been going on for some time. The transfer of short-term debt to long-term debt caused some of the financial numbers to have to be changed, mostly in the capital projects fund. And so there were a few adjustments as a result of that process. Some of the closeout of the 2017-18 adjustments that we didn't provide to Vicki on a timely basis. So some of the adjustments that were made to 2017-18 kind of spilled over into 2018-19. So that was the cause of some of these adjustments. And then the third main reason is that Vicki does the day-to-day, month-to-month accounting on what we would call the cash basis, basically recording cash activity. At the end of the year, with some assistance from us, she records accounts receivable, accounts payable, some of those transactions that don't affect cash, but do affect the fund balance, do affect the different funds. And so some of those adjustments are part of these adjustments. In general, I'd say that the audit process went quite smoothly. I think things went quite a bit better. We are a little bit more timely. I think last year we were here in March. So being here in January is quite an improvement. And I think that reflects on Tammy and Vicki, on everybody in the village, that we were able to wrap things up on a more timely basis. The rest of the communication letter just mentions that we had no disagreements with management during the conduct of the audit, and we had no other audit findings or issues that we need to present to you this evening. So that's it for the communication letter. The other letter that we have is the management comment letter. We use the comment letter for a couple of different reasons. Number one, if there are changes either now or upcoming in accounting standards, auditing standards, anything of a kind of global nature, we use the comment letter to make sure that you're aware of those things. And then we also communicate any findings and issues that we had during the audit process. At the bottom of the first page, we know resolve comment. Historically, there have been overexpended budget functions at the end of the year. This year, after some year-end adjustments, there were no areas that were overexpended. So that is a resolved comment from here. On page 2, we noted current year finding that there is not a formal review process for journal entries after they've been entered. So we recommend somebody on the board or somebody who's not a party to those transactions be tasked with kind of reviewing them just to make sure that the adjustments that are being recorded are reasonable. Then halfway down page 2, we note kind of a couple of similar comments to that communication letter. The beginning fund balances, and a couple of the funds needed to be adjusted this year because those adjustments from last year weren't provided timely. And then the accrual comment at the bottom of page 2 relates again to that process of recording receivables and payables as part of the year-end closing process. So those comments are the same as they were last year. And then on page 3, discussion items about some of the upcoming accounting standards changes. There are several changes that are going to be coming up over the next 2 or 3 years. Some of these won't have any impact. A couple of these will have a little bit of impact. If you would, just on the list on page 3, guys gave the number 84 on fiduciary activity will have a little bit of impact in how the agency funds are presented in future financial statements. Right now, there is no statement of activities for the agency fund. There will be one once this statement takes effect. The agency fund is mostly where payroll liabilities, court funds, things like that are held, things that are not really your money, but money that you have in a bank account, but you're not able to use it. The leases standard that's in here could have some impact under current accounting if there are leases that are operating in nature. There's no balance sheet impact on your financial statements. Once the new leases standard takes effect, basically any lease that is more than a year in length has to be recorded on your balance sheet as a use of asset, because you have the ability to use those leased assets and the lease obligation for the payments that you're going to have to make with the lease. So that lease standard has the potential to have some changes in how those things are reported once that standard takes effect.
And that's next year?
That is, I think that's 2 years from now.
May of 21.
I'm trying to remember the years. May of 21, so 2 years from now.
Do we have any major leases other than the backhoe?
Yes,
So fire trucks.
and, Chief's car. Is a list.
Any questions about any of those other letters or changes? Okay. The ballot packet itself, I just want to kind of hit some of the highlights. I'm not going to read through the whole 40-page document. But I do want to kind of turn your attention to where some of the things are, point out a couple changes, or describe some of the changes, talk about some of the changes that have occurred in the last few years, just kind of bring you up to speed on those. So the auditor's opinion begins on page 1. Unfortunately, it goes 2 full pages now. When I started as an accountant, they used to tell me if the opinion was more than 3 paragraphs long, we were in trouble. We've now gone to, we keep making the opinion longer and longer, but we really don't say anymore. So it's 2 pages, but it's still all good news. The management's discussion and analysis begins on page 3. It continues several pages on to page 3I, I think it is, the last page of it. The management's discussion and analysis is really meant for people who aren't used to reading and understanding financial statements on a regular basis, a sense of where things are. Charts and graphs, most of the information in the management discussion and analysis is based on what we call the government-wide format. When you get into the financial statements themselves, you'll notice that the statements are presented in two different formats. So there is what we call the government-wide format, which has one column, all of your assets, including infrastructure assets, and all of your debt, including long-term debt, including pension obligations. So it's all put in that government-wide format. And then there is also a balance sheet and a set of financial statements presented on the fund basis. So the type that you're more used to dealing with, on a month-to-month basis. So there are two different types of financial statements. A lot of the information in the management's discussion and analysis is based on that government-wide format, but there is some fund information there as well. I just want to point to a couple of the charts that's in the management's discussion and analysis, just so that you can see where they are. Page 3C, figure 1 at the top of the page, is a very condensed schedule of net positions. So it shows on a government-wide basis, it shows the total assets, the total liabilities, the position of the village. You see on the right-hand column, you see the change from May of 18 to May of 19, so that you can see where the changes occurred from one year to the next. And you can see the most significant difference. The total liabilities went down quite a bit because of the transfer or the refinancing, if you will, of the short-term EFC debt to long-term debt. The total debt, $2.4 million, because the short-term debt decreased by about $9.2 million. Long-term debt of about $6.8 million was borrowed. As a net result, your debt is down quite a bit. Assets, the deferred inflows and outflows didn't change a whole lot. So the total net position of the village at the very bottom of that figure increased by about $2.3 million from May of 18 to May of 19. The other figure that I wanted to point out on the next page, figure 2, is the changes in net position. And this shows the revenues and the expenses. And again, this also shows 2 years worth of information so that you can see where it changed from year to year. Most significantly on the revenue side, capital grants and contributions increased from about $400,000 to about $2.3 million. That's because a lot of the money that came in from EFC during the 18-19 year was in the form of grants, whereas previous to that, it was almost all in the form of loans. So that grant revenue increased your revenue by quite a bit. Bottom half of the page, expenses increased from $3.4 million up to $4.1. Mostly home and community services, the expense side of some of those renovation projects increased quite a bit. Some of the other lines also increased because there's more depreciation expense, because you've got more capital assets, because of the change in the way employee benefits get allocated across the different functions. So the net result at the very bottom again, in May of 18, net position increased by about $1.2 million. May of 19, net position increased by about $2.3 million. The last page of the management discussion and analysis, kind of a nice, what we call a looking forward section. So this describes things that are occurring in future years and other issues that might affect the finances. So that description in the middle of page 3I is kind of helpful again for what's coming up section. Page 4 and 5 are those government-wide financial statements that I mentioned. So again, if you look at those, you'll note there is just one column. It doesn't show you the assets broken down into different funds, everything's combined together. You see at the very bottom of page 4, total net position in the village is about $10.8 million. most of that, about 9 million of that is capital assets net of debt. So most of the assets are capital in nature. And then the statement of activities on page 5, this again shows the revenues and expenses, not broken down by fund. Okay. The fund financial statements begin on page 6. Page 6 is the balance sheet for the various funds. Page 8 is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the various funds. And then because we're accountants and because we like to make sure that things balance out, there are reconciliation pages in here. Since you've got 2 different types of net position fund balance, you've got 2 different types of activity statements. Page 7 and page 9 are kind of reconcile one to the other so that you can see what kind of gets added in, taken out to get from the fund basis numbers to the government numbers. The notes to the financial statements begin on page 11 and they continue for way too many pages. The notes summarize the significant accounting policies of the village. There weren't any changes like I mentioned in there. And then the notes also give you some detailed information about some of the balances, about some of the activities. I want to point to a couple of the notes just to show where there are kind of significant information provided in there. If you would turn to page 22. Page 22 is a note summarizing the capital assets of the village. You can see that construction in progress has kind of been accumulating over the last several years as all of the various EFC projects have continued. Those, as I mentioned, now that they're all closed out, construction was zeroed out. Roughly $12.9 million was added to equipment and infrastructure as a result of clearing out all that construction in progress. Half of this table on page 22 shows depreciation expense of roughly $630,000, a reduction not on a fund basis, but a reduction of the government-wide value of the assets. Then we would turn to page 25. And this is the note on long-term debt. There's a couple places to look at. On the top of the page is a table that shows, kind of summarizes the debt. So you can see bonds issued during the year, 6,700,000 and change. At the end of the year, it was about $8.3 million. And then at the bottom of the page, there's a chart that shows how that debt is scheduled to be paid off over the next 5 years individually, and then 5-year increments going all the way out to the year 2048, when the last bond is scheduled to be paid off. I'll be here to make sure that you take care of that. It's only what?
About
20
We have talked for the last couple of years, and I'll just point it out there. 2-3 years ago, there were some changes reported on the village's financial statement. The state pension system puts out a report that allocates the entire statewide deficit out to all of the municipalities. Page 28, there's a table on the top of the page that has a couple of numbers there that I just want to point to. The net pension liability for the state employee retirement system is a little bit more than $7 billion as of April of 2018, which is when this calculation was done. The police and fire retirement system had a deficit of about 1.7 trillion, I think. Either billion or trillion, who knows?
They're both big.
Your share of the liability, are the two numbers below it. So your share of the ERS liability is $195,000. Your share of the police and fire retirement liability is a little bit less than $50,000. Okay? Those amounts are reported on your government-wide financial statements. And then the numbers at the very bottom of that table, those are the percentages that belong to you. The budgetary comparison schedules I wanted to point to. I mentioned at the top that there were no overexpended budget. Page 35 through 37, budgetary comparison schedules for the general fund on page 35, and then water and sewer on the next couple of pages. You can see on the right-hand side that all of the expenditure lines, all the functional areas are underspent or completely spent, one or the other. Page 35, the general fund shows that revenues came in a little bit less than budgeted, about $20,000 less than was budgeted. The variance column on the top half of the page. The expenditures were $72,000 less than budget. So overall, the budget variance was positive, roughly $61,000 in the general fund, and the sewer fund was $109,000 positive variances. And then the last thing that I'll point out, the last two pages of the report, page 42 and 43. Because we're required to do the audit, not only under generally accepted auditing standards, but also under government auditing standards, we have to issue a report on internal control and compliance. That report identifies no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses in the control system, and no non-compliance with laws and regulations. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Any questions for Dwayne? Do I understand correctly that water and sewer debt does not count towards our constitutional debt ceiling?
So water debt is automatically exempt. Sewer debt isn't automatically exempt, but you can apply for an exemption for it. You just have to apply to state controller's office. And then once that's done, that application process is just something that normally bond counsel or supervisor or the supervisor will take care of.
Looking at the variance on the sewer budget. 109,000, gotta be because we have to pay the ban this year, pay the bond payment.
I wasn't listening, I'm sorry.
The variance on the,
Sewer.
good. There's money there to pay it.
Positive.
Anything else?
I have a general question would be how this compares to other municipalities of our size and region. So, I don't know how much that can even be disclosed, but I guess I'm just curious how
I think it compares pretty well. The fact that you have just over the last few years invested a lot of time, money, effort into wastewater, into the water programs, we're able to get some fairly significant grants for those. I think it makes the financial picture look a lot better. The total net position is pretty healthy overall. I mean, most of it, of course, is spoken for. It's capital in nature. There's not a lot of liquid net position, if you will. But that's certainly not unusual.
Well, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, thanks.
flashbacks. Academia.
No, I'm trying to get people.
Oh.
We have a lot of people talking out here.
Is that pretty quiet?
Item number 6 on the agenda, we have Richard Kinner, who's a member of the Trumansburg Fire Company, who would like to discuss with us some mapping work that he's been doing for several years now, if I understand correctly. And let you take over.
Okay. Doesn't it?
He's on his own table.
No, it's
No, it's okay.
We were looking for a copy. Morgan was good enough to make all these, because I didn't have this. I have 2 copies of these. I'll send one this end and send one this end.
Thank you.
Because I'll be referring to like that laminated and collated maps. I did that 20 years ago. And moved here. When we had a call, I didn't know when or what. Remember the corner where so-and-so's cow got hit 5 years ago? Well, no, I didn't know where that was. And it came from Ithaca. So this territory was completely on the same boat. That's where this came from. And when EMS became responsible for response to Coburg, and most recently to the Mecklenburg district, they asked me for maps. Well, even though we moved into the digital age, the problem is that a lot of the data from Google search is incorrect, seriously. And I was given some anecdotal things. I had a hard caller up in so-and-so, and it showed go across. They got partway down the road, there's a stream. Now Google, this is in Senator Cooler, showed that road going through. Well, over there it is. There's a stream. And again, they run into dead ends and this sort of thing. And by the way, Roxanne, I can't remember her name.
Marino.
Hmm?
Roxanne Marino.
She was the 911 coordinator up there and made an attempt.
No, it
No,
wasn't
this is
her.
the 911 coordinator up in St. And made an attempt to change one little thing. It was an anomaly in this. And 13 months later, finally got a response that said, well, we can't change it until somebody's physically in the field and can do it. So that's why EMS has said, could you please do this? And so ostensibly I'm here for money, because that was done with at very low cost, with the exception of doing the actual laminating and bonding. Jim Parks, an architect up the hill there, and I did all the typing work. But I can't do that anymore, so I had to go. No map exists, printed, hard copy, or digital. And where cottages. You guys. And it isn't even close because it doesn't exist anywhere. These are all private roads that aren't anywhere. So I took a GPS unit, rudimentary, that worked fine, and went on all the roads, down any number of times. Then realized that because of the complexity of it, I had to actually cite all the cottages, because they were all grouped where you had to go to try and find these places. So all that's been done, as you can see. That's all been done. So all I'm hoping to do is to complete the graphic work with data flow. This is the actual map, 30 of not only the district in Mecklenburg, but it's environment. As I did before, include a little bit out here because we have mutual aid. We're going to get a call, which they do, to go kind of a little farther. So this is pretty much the entire hectare, with the exception of the corridor that's down on the lakeside. I figured they were one that would be doing separately. So this map has been divided. You have a copy of it here. So this one's divided into 8 sections with overlap. So, same kind of thing, so they can carry it around their vehicles or have it in the rigs to, where they need to go. So what has to be done? Oh, Vicki, do you know if the invoice from Data Flow in October, 401.37, was that paid?
No,
Okay.
no, I don't think it's, oh, that one, yeah.
Oh,
But then
okay.
there was another quote for something else in that same
So it was the
range.
quote that ran the.
Yeah, it's a quote
Okay.
that wasn't, we didn't do anything, but that bill was paid. And that's
Okay.
what kind of triggered all this was
Right.
that was now charging us for things that they didn't used to charge you for. Like,
Oh,
your bills used to come in at like $8, $10, $12, and then we got this one. And it spurred me to call them, and she explained to me that now, because of the digital age and what they're doing, their bills are so much more, which
I
would
see.
require approval from, well, at that time, either Gordon or Ben, or
Right.
your EMS
Right.
manager, for us to go ahead. That's why I said, if something comes up, then send us a quote, and somebody will make a decision.
Okay,
The
okay.
powers that be will,
Gotcha.
probably Chris, I imagine now would, Chris
Yeah.
Fox would now say, yes, we wanna, because it comes out of their budget, so
Right.
I mean, I can't make that decision.
Well, what I did here was to, I asked Brian Olson, who I'm working with, who's the graphic design guy, doing this, and well, is how much is, we have one more run, as you can imagine, any number of proofs that have been done on this, in order to get it all right. And I have one more run through to correct the final one. That's the first item. So final graphic corrections, that means we go through this one final time. Are the numbers right? Is the type size right? That's right, we're pretty close. And then a couple of copies of this, because they wanted one full copy like this in the radio room, and I think Mecklenburg will want one as well. And then had about, so I arbitrarily picked a number of 10. Those ones I handed to you first, I intended the lake roads and the Hector to look like that. And that's what it means, 10 of those, because they'll go on the ridge, maybe a couple of people who want to. Now, the other matter in here is that we have mutual aid from the fire side up into Cobra. So are they gonna want copies of this? I remember, I want something in my vehicle because I'm over here, I want to respond. Go somewhere. The only other thing about this is that on the lake roads, I began a project that I just couldn't finish, and so each one of these addresses and cottages should be identified with the response vehicle that's gonna be needed. So in our case, and you all know this, maybe you don't, there are cottages on the lake that cannot be responded to except by water. They must, and we don't have a boat, it's a whole other issue. But the fact of the matter is there are basically 4 different kinds of response vehicles. May or may not be needed for each one of those cottages. And we have to do something so that whether it's a chief or an assistant chief or somebody else who happens to be near, drives all the way down there, says, oh, wait, we can't get there with this. Now we have to get this. That should be, that data should be in here. And it's time consuming. Brian Snyder and I started to drive around. We got, halfway, partway up, and just realized that I just don't, and if anybody here had an idea how that would be accomplished, how to do that, and decided I'm going to go ahead with the lake map as you see it. This thing to which I refer should be an addendum, But this is the important part of it, how to get there, and then which thing you want to go. So.
You had something you wanted to say, Nancy?
Well, no, I'm so impressed with what I'm hearing, but in terms of the question about how you identify what kind of vehicle came into which, particularly in the lake property, to town of Ulysses had lakeshore owners
Right.
some years ago.
Yeah.
And in response, we asked the 911 people to come and talk about how they dispatch calls. And they have a database that has a place for notes.
Mhm.
And that's where they say, I mean, is that already fully all entered in there in operation? Because I'm not sure, I mean, it's on the
Yes, they did a
paper
wonderful
versus
job.
the database, so I'm not sure how they.
The West Shore Association
Mhm.
got together with the 911 people and came up with about two-page form. It was sent to all the cottage owners. Where are you? Are there ditches? Are there hills? Are there any moose in the road? You know, all this stuff. And very detailed. They obviously thought a lot about this. And if and when this is done, I would use, or whoever would use that information to which you refer as a guide. You see, I think it was so well done that whoever's going to do it ought to use it as a reference to create this kind of information for all the rest of the cottages. Brian thought it was great, and he just explained to me what was done in that cottage. But in that particular case, there was a fellow who was in charge of West, who took it upon himself to be the lead on this, you know. So we don't have that.
So the reason I wanted you to come tonight, Richard, is it actually has nothing to do with the dollar amount, because actually we don't need board approval to spend this small amount. Yeah, I wanted the board to listen to what you just presented. I wanted everyone to, and I wanted a better understanding myself of kind of the intricacies of in the post GPS world, because it's very interesting. It also ties in to some of the discussions that we're starting to have with legislators at higher levels about the need for assistance to rural departments, because these things exist that nobody knows about. So I personally, I appreciate all of the, well, literally years of work that you put into this, because it's so. I don't know if any of the board members have questions for you. Personally, I don't see any problem at all in spending a few $100s to make sure that our fire and EMS responders have the ability to get where they're supposed to go on short notice. So thank you for all of the info, and I don't know if anyone else has questions or comments.
You can keep all that stuff. The only thing I want back are those the originals. They're the only two.
You've done all of this magnificent work. How do we keep it up to date?
I have depended upon the powers that be to get back to me if there's significant changes in things. And haven't heard. But the only way to do it is I obviously have all the originals.
Right.
And the roads themselves, I know the time and everything else. How this is done, Seneca County did something that Tompkins did not, Scott, nobody else did this. Somebody years ago decided that they would establish an arbitrary street address at every intersection in Skyland County. So that as you went up the road, and we have, for instance, when I did this, I indicated what direction there was an increase in property. But at every intersection, there's this arbitrary number. So what I could do with this was to use the numbers at those intersections. You have a house number that falls within those, you know where it is. So when you say up to date, they can build as many houses as they want, right? And it'll always be right. It'll always have that. Now, Skyland did not do this. In Hector, no such thing exists. At every intersection, I got as close as I can with the right property number, so as to somehow duplicate what they had done.
So under whose auspices do you do this? Do you do this on your own for
Because I think it needs to be done.
amazing? All right, so then my question
Tell them
is.
my wife's name is Marilyn.
Okay. I'm thinking that this is something that we should have officially, if I just look at the fire, I mean, the annexations aren't on here for what would be considered Trumansburg fire map. And this is, and I agree, we need to, it's amazing that this doesn't exist anywhere.
It does, it's in my office. It's been in my office for years.
No,
We
I
use it
mean,
all the
I'm-
time.
I mean, for the places that don't, this is the
Yeah.
one you wanted back, right?
Yeah. Yeah, lake properties. Things that can be, I won't say they're timeless, but I try to anticipate those kinds of things.
Mhm.
Not annexations perhaps of properties, but there are roads that exist. Hector it's huge and squirrely. And there are right of ways that I put in because I suspected at some point in the future, there'll be a house. Well, I'm gonna put them in.
To your knowledge, Richard, does anything like this exist in fire districts around us? In terms of
Not to my
detailed
knowledge.
mapping?
I will say one more, add one thing here, and that is that 911 in Schuyler County bought some software that is a digital satellite mapping. And they have, and it was sent to me for the, so here you're looking down at the little red dot, or whatever they did for the addresses. And this ostensibly was to put all the addresses everywhere. And the idea being that they could establish, well, among other things, I did, in doing this, I found errors on that map. I found errors in the tax office, I had to correct it. But the thing was, it's very, very expensive, this stuff. And very recently, Seneca County established this. Mike Carlson told me, yeah, they've got this stuff, and it's with law enforcement. I said, well, couldn't we use it here? Couldn't we get a 911? And he said, how unbelievably expensive. You gotta buy all the hardware. You gotta buy all the software for this thing. And these things, you couldn't give it to anybody. And hopefully it's right. So, did I answer your question? Yeah, more.
No, very good. No, I appreciate it.
I would think that this is a state initiative. This shouldn't
Add
be
it to-
left to
Add it to the list.
municipalities.
About
Get
that,
lying.
I went down to Tom Bloodwood, who's the tax, who's the real property tax man in Schuyler County. I said, can I have, I want to do Hector, but I said, I want to do areas beyond that. The data about things beyond the borders that you have. Oh, the states do, I just, and they have all this, it's all connected, it's, well, guess what? So,
It's all connected wrong.
it's a great idea, it was a great idea, and it was supposed to be well established.
I'll take care of that,
We
Mr. Skinner.
can take care of that. Anything,
We've done
anything
enough.
I can't figure out.
I got it, I got you.
else for Richard?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You're on that.
In the phone book. Believe it or not, we actually have a phone book.
Tax guy named Red Blood. Sounds villainous.
Well, that was pretty original map. I didn't just send it to Sky, yeah. That's the next I'm doing. It's not the original. It's Tompkins. Yes.
Well, thank. We lose Deb. Briefly.
She ran.
Went out on a high note.
Good night, Mr. Skinner.
hope to have that much passion for anything.
For anything ever. Volunteers.
It's
His
impressive.
handwriting is amazing. It's like
Penmanship.
calligraphy. It's like nothing I've ever seen.
Is there a way to get a portion of the map that relates to the town, especially on the election?
Sure.
You email me.
Okay.
Do you have any idea?
One of the reasons, and one of the reasons I found it very interesting and I wanted to have him come here and talk to us is because of the conversations we've been having with Covert and Senator Hellman about Albany's role in all of this. There's a lot more to it, obviously, than Albany wants to admit. Maybe we'll add this to our growing list of things to talk to them about. Item number 7 on the agenda is Farmers Market Board, and Maggie, and I'm not going to try to say your last name.
That was my maiden name. My current married name is Salvato.
Okay.
Which is easier to say. Won't bother you learning the other The Farmers Market Board is again faced with the time-consuming task of replacing the market manager. This position, while lucrative to the market, has remained a low-paying seasonal position. The tasks required and additional management needs have grown with the popularity of the market. And in order to increase retention in the position and increase accountability, we see the need for the position to increase in both hours required and wages offered. The continued growth of the village's market requires it. Providing additional time and resources to the manager allows the board to then take time to investigate making the market self-sustaining in the near future. There's 3 questions I want to answer before I have some subsequent questions you would have. The 3 questions I want to answer for you are, what is the job description? How will that change? Where could we increase revenue to cover this? And how much are we asking for? First of all, the job description. I just this afternoon gave Vicki the current responsibilities and task list that we have right now for the current manager, which is 4 pages, 3 of which are the current task lists, and then there's some additional responsibilities page we attached at the end. We went through as a board and highlighted on the first 3 pages the tasks that we didn't feel the past 2 market managers were able to regularly complete in the amount of time that they were paid to work. So as you might guess, this job description is extremely overreaching for the amount of remuneration we've been able to offer in the past. The original position was filled by someone with a great amount of passion for the market and was willing to volunteer a significant amount of time to help complete all those tasks. We can't expect the same level of volunteerism from the candidates for this position going forward. And it hasn't shown up, even though we've expected it, talked about it in the hiring process. We haven't had managers with the same level of passion for the job. So we hope an increase in pay will certainly increase their accountability as well as the amount of time they're willing to put into the job. Essentially, we want to change this from a seasonal stipend position into more of a part-time, year-round, or possibly 11-month position. That will give us the history and have the market manager's tasks be able to be parsed out through the year. We did an audit of the tasks we require of the manager during market days, during the market season. And what we were offering them as pay was not even minimum wage for the amount of time we were asking. And there are additional requirements of the job pre-season with the vendor applications, as well as some post-season wrap-up work that they expect. Where do we find revenue to cover this? Hopefully, the village continues to see the value in helping to support the farmer's market board. And should we be asked to cover some of the revenue in this increase, we are planning to increase our vendor fees roughly 20% over each of the next 3 years in order to increase the overall revenue the market brings in. We are working on investigating endowment for grant opportunities. I think because the market manager position is a year-to-year position, it's not necessarily a grant opportunity, but perhaps an endowment could be investigated. And then the board has also shown a lot of interest in researching becoming a nonprofit or creating a Friends of the Market nonprofit where we could solicit more donations, essentially, to help cover some of these costs. And then thirdly, how much are we asking for? We would like to offer this person $10,000 for this job this year. We've estimated the general responsibilities around 650 hours throughout the course of this year, a year, and that the responsibilities to be 10 to 15 hours per week in season, more or less on either end. And that averages them out to a $15 an hour living wage, which we feel we want to offer because we want the person to consider this to be a real job. So often it will help support that. That's all I've prepared. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them today or.
Do you have a sense of what the current vendor fees is? Like, what is that 20% over 3
Yes.
years in a dollar amount? You know? I think I might have something.
I don't have the,
I do. I do.
Oh, okay.
It's $115 if they have electricity. It's $85 if they don't
For the season?
for the season.
Yeah, I was wondering, I was wondering like, what's the total, right? Because
Oh, you
I'm
want
just
to
kind
know?
of trying to get a ballpark
like,
of like,
times the number of
It's
vendors.
about 20. I'll get it for you, but
Okay.
keep going.
yeah.
Sorry.
So that vendor fee increase wouldn't cover this significantly more increase
Right.
in the amount that we are asking for the village to contribute. We're hoping that the village values the market and its continued growth.
The total vendor fee is, for this year was 30, well, it's about $3,000, $3,070. The one thing that I saw, and maybe I'm talking out of turn, but on the description, the one thing that is the things that are required with it, with the EBT things and reimbursements for the farmers from the, vouchers, and there are due at the end of the year to these people that we have the double coupons with and the EBT too. I didn't know if you guys really knew that Julia was doing that. Right,
We don't know, but the board didn't
Yeah.
understand the
Right.
level of
yeah, there's a lot.
management that
right.
she took over when she took on that.
Mhm.
Any other questions at this point?
Sorry.
I'll just say as an aside, I don't know if it's a question, but I mean, I've seen what the market board has put in effort-wise into kind of understanding the position and the opportunity and how they can go about it. And so I greatly appreciate the work that the market board's been putting in of what do we see from this board as kind of our market board and how much we want to put into that. I know we had a pretty good conversation last month. Do you know, coming back last year, we kind of had a soft agreement as to what level of funding we were going to give for the market to bring into your kind of hiring conversations is, do you know when you would want to have a kind of a sense of where the board stands? I mean, we're going to go into our budgeting season and we'll know clearly in the next couple of months because we'll have the budget put together. I don't know if you feel like you need something earlier.
We would like to be able to hire for this position by the end of February. And to be able to offer that person some idea of whether it's going to be 4,000 or 10,000 would be great. Julia came to the position last year, not knowing how much, if the stipend would increase, and agreed to take the position either way. So I think if we check her again, she might respond in the same way. But we won't know until we ask candidates if they're going. And it would be easier to hire a person for the so yeah, just having that.
I'm curious if other folks on the board have a sense of now hearing a little bit more where people's heads are at.
Ben or Keith?
I'm generally in favor of it. I think the question comes down to what you and Norton were talking about last month, which is the possibility of an upfront like or increase in what we're putting in, and then a long-term sort of tapering of that, and whether or not that's possible. But it sounds like maybe the question is if the market becomes a nonprofit, or how we handle things like that, because that's would then be obviously a different bag of worms entirely. That was not a very conclusive statement, but I don't know. Has there been any thought about that? How to make that work? If that's tenable long term, if in 5 or 10 years, where we'd like to be.
I mean, it's certainly tenable. There are nonprofit farmers markets. And I would imagine our relationship would look more like our relationship with the library or the historical society, where we give a lump sum as part of the budget. And then I think there's been some bouncing back and forth, and something maybe to bring into that conversation is it seems like grant writing has been easier as part of the village potentially. But also the board hasn't been a nonprofit in the past, and so it was kind of limited in funding grant writing in general. As a nonprofit, they might have more opportunities. Certainly, there are plenty of nonprofit farmers markets that
They could at least solicit for donations. I mean, even locally, that would be somewhat impactful.
Right. Be able to solicit. There's nothing that would stop the village and the nonprofit entity from applying for a grant together.
Yeah, sure.
I did look through the list of every single grant that was awarded in the regional economic development cycle back in December. Some of them were pretty interesting. There were a lot of breweries that got money, but there were some not-for-profit farmers markets that got quite a bit of money. I don't think I saw any municipal farmers markets get money. So there might be a little distinction there from an economic foot traffic standpoint. The state money, since so many municipalities are asking for money for other things, they might like. You mentioned vendor fees increase, possibly investigating grants and endowments, possibly reforming as a not-for-profit. I didn't hear selling advertising. Is that something that's been discussed and did it turn down as a concept, or has it not been thought through?
It hasn't been discussed other than the music sponsorship gets to advertise certain there. But there's not, maybe I don't understand your question. Advertising within the market space?
Either within the market space or creating some type of a weekly flyer that listed the bands that are playing that week and who the vendors are, and then on the back there might be a page for half a dozen.
Yeah, that's not that I'm discussed as an idea, but.
The fair book. I know
Instagram features.
I know the golf course fairly well, and they run on a shoestring an ever thinning shoestring, but most of the revenue comes from advertising in strange places, like, well, Glenwood Pines sells advertising on their placemats.
Right.
The golf course has the golf cards, they sell space on it, so it'd be a little bit of a, you have to get a little creative of where the ad would actually show up.
Well,
But
each
if
booth could be a naming opportunity.
the booth, there's spaces, you gotta be careful to make sure it's not the village that's selling the ad space. It would have to be the farmer's market itself, which is another reason why not-for-profit is probably a good way to go. But advertisers routinely pay, $500 a season so that their name is displayed every week for 20 weeks. All you would need is 10 of those. And now we're starting to talk about some real revenue when it comes to paying someone for a spot. So, I mean, me personally, I'm supportive of the farmer's market. I remember 3 people and a ham sandwich, and now it's a nice thing. It's a Wednesday evening destination for a lot of folks, especially young families who are on tight schedules and need to get something in their kids before they throw them in the shower and get in bed. But there's always a but. I have also heard the complaining. I've heard depending on this, that, and the other thing, and I don't go to the farmer's market, so why are my taxes going to it? So there has to be that balance between saying this is a good idea, so we're going to spend the money, but then how can we run it as efficiently as possible? So I would be supportive of information. And if that means hiring a good attorney to help with it, then the village can probably help you one. But moving in a direction that's going to create some type of self-sustainability on the part of the market. And I think if we have, my history with the farmer's market goes back to 2007. So as I've watched this evolve, it's always been, yes, the village likes it. Well, then we need more money. Yes, the village likes it. Well, then we need more money. We try all these different iterations of essentially the same thing. So if we're going to continue to support the market, I want to see something different. I want to see a change. I want to see at least an attempt to do something. Einstein said the definition of insanity is, trying. You could double the number Vicky just gave. You could double the farmer's market entire budget with advertising in year 1. My personal opinion. Don't really happen. We'd have to try it to prove whether that's right or wrong. So if the farmer's market board is willing to move in that direction, then I would be supportive of scrounging up the additional taxpayer dollar to make the pay increase for the manager a reality.
Interest in investigating going into the nonprofit. So with the resources in the village, or the village is essentially flushing on that, we can certainly spend more time doing that there.
If they go nonprofit status, what does that do with their books and stuff that take them out of the office? So they become their own entity, truly their own entity.
Yeah, you have your own accounting, own accountant,
Your own checkbooks, your own.
pay their own checking. I mean, so they've increased the overhead as well.
Right, well, I think that was kind of my point, is if you're gonna go to the nonprofit, it kind of takes us out, which means you guys have that much more to revenue to think about, because you are gonna have expenses.
Right.
That you
Yeah,
don't
we
have
can do
now.
a lot of things on
Yeah,
that
they
side.
need
Right.
bookkeeping and
What that impact really is.
Right, because,
nonprofit.
so
You might wanna-
that's something to think about, because that's pretty big.
I mean, you may want to also just check in with cooperative extension. They were instrumental in helping a lot of the smaller communities develop their farmers markets. And I was just looking on their website, and the farmers markets are not the biggest farmers market in many places. But the Brookendale Community Center sponsored theirs. I don't know who sponsored their own drive, but I think Monica Roth is still the Alice person part-time at cooperative extension. And she's a wealth of information, and might have ideas, and not necessarily an advertising expert, but might have ideas about how others have become more self-sufficient I move on farmers markets, my head ideas too.
And I think all of those options should be on the table if the determination is made that something needs to be done somewhat differently or radically differently. There's not to say that the village can't provide administrative support, and then we would have to value that, and that would be, part of the in-kind donation made to the farmer's market. If the farmer's market is now raising a significant amount of revenue through some of these other sources, then the dollars given to the farmer's market from the village become less important, but maybe the administrative support remains. So, all of those things need to be looked into. If it's a not-for-profit, what classification would it be? It wouldn't be a 501c3 because it's not a charity. It would be the C, whatever, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's a bunch of them. New York State does have unincorporated associations for purposes like this. So, that's more of a lawyer's job. But I think if I don't know that there's been the will in the past and on the part of past farmers markets boards to really take that kind of workload on to find out what the actual best structure is for the long-term sustainability of the market. If this board is willing to do that, then I support that, and I'd be willing to defend, if necessary, the spending of some money to make that happen.
The board wants to continue to grow the market and see some sort of change, and this moving toward a nonprofit seems like the most viable solution.
I was going to say, I really do see, I see this as a really great opportunity to we're at this kind of inflection point as I see it. And it feels like we've got an opportunity to kind of kickstart it by putting in this additional funds over, hopefully a fixed kind of time span to allow for some of these ideas to play out and see where they land. But like I said, I have seen the market board do a lot of work over the past month to kind of put this all together. That's really encouraging. And I'd like to see where it kind of goes.
Is it safe to assume that the manager, if paid more, would the manager pursue these revenue streams, or would that be more on the board?
I think it would be on the board at this point. I think we need the manager to streamline and make more efficient the protocols and communications for the day-to-day operations and facilitation of the market day, and that the board needs to take on this sort of big picture project. We've been having to get into some of the weeds of that day-to-day management a little bit more than we had expected because of the turnover in management positions. I mean, if we could have retention in that position, we wouldn't be having to scramble in the early part of the season to help out with some of the day-to-day management of that manager, get trained and know what to do.
And historically, have certain responsibilities individually with regards to market support?
Some, I think there's been a couple different board members who have taken on market day responsibilities. But there's definitely been committees that have taken over the application, vendor application process. And other tasks, certain
Interfacing more with the market board. My initial reaction was more of, if we kind of stay with the current working model, it did seem like the breakdown was that the board needed to take on more to make the market manager job kind of tenable. And so initially that was kind of where my head was at, but as we kind of continue to talk about this, I'm really coming around to the idea that by freeing up the board through this expanded market manager position, that does give the board the opportunity to think bigger picture of what is the 3 to 5 to 7 year plan here, and how do we go after that. And so I think that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of hearing and all those pieces are kind of falling together for me right now.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to decipher what, so we say the market is growing in popularity, which would maybe suggest, and again, let me preface this by saying I'm not against the idea of giving this person $10,000, but I'm just trying to think through it. It's growing in popularity would suggest it's not totally broken, but it sounds like the person that is in the managerial role is overworked compared to compensation. And so that turnover is more the significant problem than anything else.
I think so, but then the question is, how do you get up to that amount of money where it's a reasonable pay and the turnover hopefully drops?
Sure. And if
When
so,
you get
if,
there, then you have to figure out how to sustain that, and then that becomes this kind of larger conversation.
so then I guess my question is just, and I think we were basically talking about this, is ensuring that with this investment, we know if it's moving any dials, right? If something's improving. And if this market manager is not going to be tasked with improving and increasing revenue, because I'm not totally clear on how we measure the performance of the manager. I mean, we are talking about budgeting for the marketing manager as much as we budget for our mayor, right? Just to put it into context. Just
Well, it's also a part-time job, so it's fine.
It's just one meeting.
again, I love the market, and I want to see the market thrive. And I think I said last meeting, like, I'll pay this. Trying to figure out, if to your point, Rory, if we make the investment, what, what, right? And
So one of the things the manager has been tasked with reporting to the board that hasn't been consistent is number of vendors that are there and the number of customers. They do a pass through the market several times and actually count how many people are there. So whether or not we count revenue dollars, we can count people.
I mean, I think you make a good point. Where I see it is not just the market manager, but the market board as well, the kind of combined power of those two positions or entities or whatever. Because as I was saying, like, I think if you kind of offload more of the day-to-day execution pieces, that allows the board to go after some of these larger pieces, like how do we incorporate marketing in? How do we go to a nonprofit status? Some of these like bigger levers, so we're not just kind of sure what we want to see as, maybe it's just kind of top dollar, amount that we're giving, or kind of revenue or whatever we'll look at as ways to kind of checkpoint. Certainly at the end of each market season, if not like or our budget season, kind of they will align to some degree because the market doesn't start up till later in the year. But we should absolutely checkpoint, on at least an annual basis, if not somewhat more regularly, to see how these things are playing out. And I think part of where we've, on the board side, have fallen down a little bit is not had a clear connection with the market board for quite some time. So I'm glad that I'm able, Merton asked me to kind of step into that, and that's part of what's precipitated this kind of whole conversation. I think we owe it to the market as well as to the taxpayers who are paying for it to be more involved in making sure that the money's doing what we want to see.
yeah, and I think it could just be a matter of setting clear goals, and then come the end of the year, we talk through those goals, which ones were met, which ones were not, why did that happen, and just to keep that dialogue going.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, I wrote down these ideas for revenue. Set of ideas actually set benchmarks for. Obviously, the vendor fees is an easy one, but write X amount of grants could be a goal. You might not get them. You definitely don't get them if you don't write them, kind of thing. And consider a goal for sponsorship dollars and advertisement dollars. It's hard to set goals when you really haven't done it before, but I'm sure comparing to other markets might be able to give us a general idea. So that's just what I'm interested in, the actual reporting side of it. Because like I said, I do want the market to advance, and it'd be great to have somebody come in here and throw down, a couple $100,000 and just endow the manager position for a lifetime. And maybe we can get there with the, if we go the nonprofit status route. But, so that's just where I'm at. I'm generally agreeable to it, but we just
Well, I mean,
love, if it's an investment, I think there also needs to be accountability. That's all.
I mean, to that point, after our discussion in, I guess it was December, what I was really hoping was that someone from the board, the farmers market board, was going to come back with a business plan. And so maybe what we need is a board, because I also don't want to step on toes. There's a farmers market board, it's a pseudo independent entity, and this market manager is not a village employee. So I wanted to tread lightly at first, but we could spend the next 10 years treading lightly. So that's why I come back and say, if we're going to do this, let's make it more formal. Let's have to accept it because we can't force them to. Tasked with the idea of we need to create a business plan for the market, which involves becoming a self-sustaining entity of some type. And the village will support that evolution. Once that's in place, then I think whatever that business plan, if it's a good one, a lot of the tasks that will need to be accomplished to make the business will fall to whoever the manager is. Maybe they will do a lot of the grant writing. Maybe they will be the person that goes to the area businesses and sells the advertising space at $500 a clip or more, depending on what we use for actual space. There's a process built into that, that I think maybe we're putting the cart before the horse a half a step by paying the manager more first. But maybe that's the investment the village needs to make in order to free up the board if they're willing to do some of that work. Maybe this should have been done 12 years. I don't know. There's a lot of maybes built.
Well, and it might also offer the board more clarity on the kind of people you need on your board. Because until this discussion came up, I didn't really know a lot about the farmers market board. And, if there was a call out for, we need some good marketers on our board. Then it's, I love the farmers market and I like marketing. Like, okay, I can help. So it might help. It might help with, diversifying the board as well.
Because you're looking for a spot in another not-for-profit.
No, I am not. No, let's make that very clear.
That wasn't clear.
I am getting out of that business.
Volunteer.
Right. Paid consultants to give you some ideas.
Is that the Boston Forge? The owner of Edible Bigwoods who lives right there?
Good luck.
It's not.
But he should be.
He owes
Right.
something.
Yes, he should write that down.
I do see it as a bit of a little bit cart before horse, but in a good way. Like it's an investment. Gordon and I spoke. I was really interested in the idea of kind of a business plan as well. Trying to put that together as a board in a month is a tall order, but I think what I'm hearing here, what I'd like to see if we feel comfortable saying this is basically we're leaning towards expanding this as a board in the next budget season. I think the market can take that back to their applicants and say nothing's written in stone. Obviously, nothing's final until we have approved. That's where our leanings are, and that's where, with hope that this is how the position will be structured for the next year. And then I would like to see the continued conversation towards a more clear business plan of, checkpoints, kind of goals that can be actually worked against. And a plan to kind of go where I think we all want to go. I mean, it sounds like the village board as well as the farmers market board, we want to kind of put this all together. And clarifying it and getting clear goals and clear checkpoints, I think would be the first place to do that. But I can see the board getting freed up to do that, knowing that they have the support from the village and from the market manager to kind of make sure things stay on an even keel now while we kind of try to change the structure and the underlying opinions.
When is your next board meeting?
We meet on the 26th. 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 26th.
That is Sunday.
Isn't it
Yeah.
usually?
It's a busy day.
That's the
I'm fairly certain that's the date. Yeah, we meet regularly on weekends, Sunday.
So then I think if the board is in agreement, if this board is in agreement, I think the message is that we're interested and willing to help fund a change in the structure of the farmer's market. And we'll need some type of, not formal commitment, but some type of indication that your board wants to move in that direction. To begin, ASAP, so that we can keep the momentum going in terms of.
What would that look like to you? Are you expecting like a business plan type document to be presented to the board in a couple of months, or?
So if I were me, the first step would be finding out from some of the sources that Nancy mentioned, as well as legal counsel if necessary, what the actual best corporate structure for the farmers market would be. Whether that's one of the 501Cs, whether it's some type of other strange New York State unincorporated association that might exist. But investigating the commitment to say we're going to change our structure from a pseudo nothing into a real something.
Right.
And then taking the first step in investigating which of those structures is most appropriate. Determined, then it's $250 filing fee and a whole bunch of paperwork. Now we're actually forming a corporation. Now we're forming an entity. Then it's tax ID numbers, and then it's bank accounts, and so it's the actual movement to forming the structure of the organization. Once where the business plan comes in that process is really the business kind of exists already. So what you're going to take is a business without much of a plan, build a structure around it, and then adapt and create a plan around what already is operating. I normally charge $2,500 for this information. But that, between now and April, a lot of that can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if your board meets and says, that's way too much work, we're not interested, just tell the village, give us some money so we can open, then we have to have a very different conversation. This board has to have a very different conversation.
I don't anticipate that being.
Is there anything that prevents us from having this conversation next year? I mean, we continue
We've had every year for the last.
last 5. And it's like, okay, we were gonna step back, we're gonna step back, we're gonna step back. I mean, I think this is the right direction. I just want us, we should have some kind of,
It does become easier the
Stick.
more structured the plan is, right? Then it's easier to sort of check in and say, are we on track? Yes, no. At this point, we don't have a plan, so it's kind of like, well, out of the infinity of directions we could have gone, where are we? Why are we here?
but
So
if
hopefully,
we're still if we're still rudderless, when do we pull the plug? Oh. It'll be
Well,
a
I think that's-
discussion next year.
No,
but-
it's a good point. I think that's part of having this conversation in January as we're going into our budget cycle and they need to hire someone. Is, if the farmer's market board starts to move in that direction in a concrete manner in the next 6 weeks, then we will hopefully not be having this conversation next year.
Yeah, I mean, certainly by next year, we'll have a lot more information. I think that putting the goal easy to tell one way or the other, by the time we have to have this conversation again, we can see playing out. I'm also, just from like a numbers perspective, and what the market manager is tasked with is a number that makes sense for the actual job. I think we've been trying to get away with, playing toward people's desire to see the market succeed and volunteer extra time and kind of go over and play into the ethos of nonprofit land that, you kind of work your butt off and get paid what you get paid. I don't see this personally increasing more than this. The question is not that it'll keep going up, but that we want to see it go back down. So then how do we get there? And I think we'll start seeing that plan evolve and how we kind of, this is a real like 10 hours a week all the year, all the way around the year, plus the 5 hours on top when you're in season. That should be able to.
And with this change in direction, you should revisit the market manager's description because there will be different forces at play and what they need to do.
Good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 8, reports from representatives. Whoever would like to go first.
I can start, just regarding the farmer's market, just another reminder, this is probably going to be the last year's grants for parks. We believe the farmer's market could be included in that. And so the grants are up to $5,000. I was thinking you're looking at trying to create more revenue out of more vendors, but maybe adding a couple stoves or something like that. So it's for something concrete, that you said.
Right, but a third row of pavilions is not, is that, it can't be structural? Oh,
No, it has to be structural.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I would want to add a third row of pavilions.
Right. Or something else. Structure, they want something that people can see, table, gazebo, or something like that. So that'll be coming out in 4 years. Should have that information.
Yeah, just check their website, what we were talking, the new 2020 grant applications are not yet, 2019 efforts are there. And the capital county.
And then I have, October sales tax. So, it had gone down, I think September it had gone down a little bit, but it rebounded, the county was up 4.17%. And year-to-date, that was 4.05%. Municipalities, well, we're also up the same amount, 4.17 for October, and year-to-date, 4.05. November, the county was up 6.4%, and year-to-date, that was 4.26%. And it also, again, happened to be the exact same. Municipalities was up 6.4% for November, and year-to-date, at the end of November, 4.26%. And we're looking at merging the, I thought this was before, but the mental health and public health departments. So that's an ongoing process. What we're looking at is probably going to be overall things that they're possibly community outreach. What we realized is the mental health department doesn't really much of any community outreach. They kind of deal with people after they have mental health issues. So we thought one way of combining them was we could do combined outreach. And also, one of the things we're possibly looking at is saying somebody, 1 or 2 folks from the public health department being stationed at the mental health building, and maybe vice versa, versus a lot of people tell us they're going to this building for that, this building for this appointment, so try to make things, you go for your vaccination and then your counselor appointment or something like that. And so if anybody had any feedback, we did pass a residency resolution, which makes it for new department heads that they could apply for a residency waiver that they don't need in the county. And it's not automatic, but it's $1 million bond for the airport. And that's going to be paid with PFC facility charges. And I did take a tour of the completed renovations. It was really cool to see that they have food on both sides now, security, jet bridges, you don't have to walk outside anymore, and see the guts of the geothermal system working, so it's one of the most energy efficient airports that I know of. Next topic, we passed a resolution to limit, if not totally stop, county facilities, county staff purchasing any single-use plastic or polystyrene, otherwise known as styrofoam, purchase any items like that. And it's not going to be immediate. We passed a resolution to do that, but we still have to make up a policy, which will take a couple of months. So I'll keep you updated as far as the kind of things that we find out as we do that. You know, it's not going to be easy. And our recycling and materials management department has started clamping down on people putting contaminants or the wrong things into the recycling bins. And we've had, I think, over 1,000 warnings that they've put out to people. And then so that's, I don't know, sticker or no, somehow they leave you a note saying that. But if you get a certain number of warnings, then they will stop picking up your recycling completely until you make arrangements with them to say that, yes, I do know, and I'll stop putting this stuff in. So it's not a fine, but they're just gonna stop picking stuff up at wherever that is. And I think that's about it.
Any questions for Ann?
When that food is actually gonna start, you know, is it Saturday, Thursday morning? Yeah.
Right, it was supposed to have already been started, so I don't know.
And what's that? Did you say?
Well, they're five, and then it's 6
They don't do
o'clock.
anything before 7. I've been in and out of that airport my entire life.
I had a 5:30 PM flight 2 weeks ago. Didn't look
5:30
like, didn't look
PM.
like, yeah, it didn't look like the coffee company had fully settled in yet.
Right, they haven't actually completely opened yet, so I'm gonna go back and count for that. Because I was there last week. They were supposed to be up and running, if the coffee company, we run out. I'm also gonna be going to NISAC, the New York State Association of Counties meeting, their conference later this month, I think in January, so we're gonna stay in Albany for an extra day to do lobbying, and one of the things that we're gonna be lobbying about is asking the state to not fix its budget deficit by taking the Medicare funding and, or the Medicare deficit, and putting it on the counties.
Medicaid.
Medicaid,
I'm sorry, what is it?
Medicaid, you said Medicare, I'll Medicaid.
Your next meeting is next Tuesday.
The legislature, 21st.
Any predictions on whether you'll have a chair at the end of that meeting?
We're gonna try.
Just curious. Any other questions for Ann?
When you do the reapportionment, you'll get a odd number of seats for the legislature, so even
Yeah.
that must come up. I should, you know, it is that way. Yeah, a couple of quickies. The new representative town is going to be holding an interviewing marathon. We've got 5 good applicants that we will meet with on Monday, January 20th. We will, again, make the selection that day so that someone can get started, get on board. Obviously, keep you posted, then will be part of those interviews. You got later in your agenda, we did participate in the reconciliation of the 2019 recreation program budget process from the town. In December, we did approve our repeal and replacement of our entire zone, several hundred pages long. There are some tweaks some of us wanted to go back in and make in this first half of the year, and some longer ones that we may want to discontinue that we weren't able to work out completely. I think you have known, or the papers actually have done a pretty good job of covering the fact that the fugitive recovery service. We've gotten funding to expand, on site, but because of the configuration of their land, they go through first a zoning appeals process. The footprint is larger than the land that's in the town, but the total land they own extends into Schuyler County, so the plot is actually big enough to do what they want. And they did get a zoning, variance, and then they did finish up, meeting the expectations of the, planning board. So that site plan was reviewed. The one remaining piece that I think we're close on is finalizing an updated, water contract between CARS and the town. The one the town and village have is still intact, but one of the things we're attempting to do is look at it. Currently, we're a couple other users added into that line. They've been close to us for many years, and now we're trying to figure out a way to make that work, so. The bridge project, the Cemetery Road Bridge project, Michelle, Troy has been our point person on that. The design plans have been submitted to the state. Once those are reviewed, once we figure out rights of way and all of that, the hope is that if we, get bids back by June, construction will start and be completed by October. So obviously, we will work closely with you because they'll probably need to do some rerouting and all of that while that bridge is low. There is some talk about trying to widen the existing bridge, when they do the new replacement bridge. I think everything's probably going to get that through the state. So, looking at that. And, just an FYI, some people may have gotten an email from the New York State Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services about like a Narcan type training. I had shared that with Chris Fox, and he checked with the chief, Chief Nelson, who seemed interested. And I just today saw that our local countywide alcohol and drug council is planning to sponsor a free training. And so I have since forwarded that to Chief Nelson and to Chris. So if others are in other parts of the village want that training, it is available for them. So that's, yeah.
I was gonna mention the county youth board vacancy.
Yes.
Could you explain that a little bit more? Cause I assume you are more familiar with that board and what it does and that function. Could you just?
Yeah.
explain?
Yes, the Tompkins County has a services department, and it has an advisory board comprised of members from all the municipalities, so all the townships, and some key program areas. The seat to represent the town of Ulysses, inclusive of the village, have been filled by Pete Angie from the Jacksonville Community Association, and he stepped down. So we currently need somebody who's interested in youth. It's not a programming board, it's more a policy and actually a funding board. There's almost $1 million of money that comes largely from the county, but also from some from the state. And the advisory board recommends to the legislature how those funds can be spent to meet some of the needs and the priorities that are identified by this board. Staff helps with that. People may know Janice Johnson, she works for that department. And it's that advisory board that needs a representative. So, it's actually, I think, biased. I've been in that department for 30 years, so I have a fair interest in it, but it's actually a fascinating way for anybody who's interested in kids and public policy to learn about the various services in the community. If you think about needs from 0 through 21, some cases 24, from daycare to homelessness, it's a full continuum of needs and services, and that board learns about it and weighs in and makes recommendations that shapes how we reach out and provide services throughout the county. And so a chunk of the money that comes into the youth commission is actually from that process and from the legislature through that process.
It's also worth noting for anyone who might be considering this option, that the meetings are at 5:30 rather than 3:30, the usual county time. So that makes it, I think, a lot more accessible. So for anyone who is considering it, either reach out to Nancy or myself. That'd be great. And I'm assuming I'm talking mostly to the video when I say that, but thanks, Nancy.
Anything else for Nancy? Thank you. Board members, starting with fire CPZR, and I think we've done quite enough for farmers market tonight. But
Indeed. So I think we're good on that front. On the fire front, nothing of report, nothing significant to report, but I do have the chief's report here. There were 6 calls for service for the village of Trumansburg, 5 for the town of Ulysses, 2 for Covert, 2 for Hector, and 5 mutual aid. Total of 20 calls. This is for the month of December. There was 202 hours of training and 76.45 hours of service. So for a total of 278.45 total hours. The one part I'll say a little bit more about is CPZR. So we have moved our meetings now to the 3rd Thursday of the month. They were previously the 2nd Thursday of the month. We last meeting had a good review. Our consultant EDR didn't join us, but we had a good review with the committee. Chatted about our experience with the public meeting. Everyone was very pleased with the turnout and the responses we got through that. We started kind of brainstorming on some goals for the new comp plan, bringing in information from people in the public meeting, as well as we've now gotten the survey results, both the hard copies that were returned to the village, as well as the online surveys. I would say between all of those ways people gave us responses, we're close to 100 responses, which was a decent number. I'd like to see that higher, but not terrible. I think I did a review of the survey from the last comp plan. I think it was in the mid 200s amount of results. So we've got some more ways to go on that. But that brings me to another part that we discussed is we're looking at another survey to be put out likely in conjunction with our next public meeting. The current survey was really more kind of a free-form questionnaire around kind of SWOT analysis, really is what it was: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Good, a lot of good feedback, not super easy to really kind of quantify, it's very kind of free-form, but still, I mean, helpful. I've been going through with our goals document and kind of roughly checking that most of, a broad swath of the results or the comments can map to something that we're talking about in the goals document. I think there's a lot of good work there. Anyhow, so we'll be having our next meeting this coming Thursday this week. We're going to cover again a lot of the same kind of pieces, continuing to work on what would that more detailed survey look like, how did that work, as well as the goals document. And we do have the first 3 chapters draft version from EDR for the new comp plan. So we'll start looking through that. That's mostly the background information, the demographics, the kind of look and feel of the village, that kind of stuff. So kind of boilerplate that they were able to mostly work on their own, and then we'll kind of get in the meat of goals, strategies, actions, that kind of thing. So, and I may also be going to the planning board to chat about it as well. So I think that's it.
Good.
The state of the village is a good time to design the survey. If you could get, even if it isn't the whole survey,
Right.
if you could get a baseline set of questions that they can answer at the state of the village, so that you're not mailing it, they're
Sure.
not forgetting about it, they're doing it when it's there.
Well, I'll bring up to the committee to see if there's interest in, we've got I don't think we'll have a more detailed survey at that point, but we continue to have the open kind of free-form survey. I think there's probably a fair amount of overlap with people that show up at the State of the Village. I'll run it by the committee to see if we'd be interested in kind of opening that. I don't really see any problem with that. We're still very early in the draft things that any additional comments could easily be kind of incorporated. But it's a good point.
Okay. EMS and street tree advisory.
So for Tammy, helped me iron out a couple of details. So the Tree City application has been completed, submitted. The DEC forester has signed off on it and sent it along. So that is exciting. Primarily, basically, we didn't have the sign-up numbers at all that we had budgeted for. It's startlingly low. So Nancy and I are actually going to meet later in the week to figure out how we do that. We have a lot of back and forth of monies in the MOU, so we'll see how that goes. As far as EMS goes, Chris has been out. I don't know, Ron, you can share more probably, but as I've talked with him a few times, and it seems like everything has been going suspiciously great. He referred to it as his honeymoon phase, so I don't know, maybe
12 days, it just feels longer.
yeah. So we'll see. I mean, it seems really promising to me. I mean, I feel very relieved to have him there. At this point, I know he's Chris Fox.
12 days of Chris Fox.
Yeah. So he's doing, at this point, individual interviews with all the personnel. I think working on scheduling, working on some of the individual duties that people have and ironing that stuff out. And I suspect, depending on how you guys all feel, that I'd invite him to come to our next meeting or maybe one later on if people would be interested in talking with him and getting sort of an update. He had offered to come tonight if we wanted him to, but I felt like it's probably a little too soon to get anything of worth. It's at this point really pretty preliminary stuff. So in any case, we'll have probably a regular report for next month, and I imagine shortly after that, the towns and all of that stuff will return. But do people have thoughts about whether it'd be good, worthwhile to have him come in?
When are the ambulance bids coming in?
I do not know.
So I think February meeting,
February
if for
meeting?
no other reason than to go over the bids.
Yeah, that
Makes sense. And then if anything he wants to bring us up to speed on, would be good. I plan to sit down with him sometime in the 4 to 6 week range, post honeymoon period, to see what he might.
When you're doing some of your other meeting schedules, I did want to have you join towns for the EMS meeting possibly on
Of February?
10, before your regular.
Oh, I see. Okay. So like 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
5:30.
Check with our town board tomorrow, but just want to look at that. That's what we did before, we brought in some pizza before the regular village board meeting, we were all kind of here anyway.
Right.
No, that worked well. I enjoyed that.
Let us know so we can notice it.
Okay.
And make sure everyone's
So
available.
is that, so generally okay if it works for others?
I think so, yeah.
Can we push it to the 14th?
Yes.
Means I don't have to make any
Exactly.
plans.
I like it.
I think
No?
like sort of an all day
Yeah.
thing.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm good with it.
We have a fire and EMS meeting.
Sorry, honey.
it's 24 hours.
Just a
Anything
thought.
else on
Just a thought.
EMS youth or street tree?
Nope.
DPW water sewer.
I don't have anything, no, I think that you had the last meeting with Dusty, I don't know if anything came out of that, I had sent you some notes.
We did. We discussed meter replacement. He says we have a number of spare heads. I think the next big thing will be the review of the new sewer law.
Right, and that's with MRB next month.
which
I mean, that's
is this month.
But we'll discuss it at the meeting next month.
Right, we may have enough information to do some bullet point
For
for the state of the
yeah.
village.
Okay. That's all I get. We'll talk,
Police and T-Bird Chamber.
So police for the month of December, 170 calls for service. 7 were outside the village in the town of Ulysses. No major incidences to report. Yeah, did have 37 property checks. I just wanted to give a little bit of a PSA that's people can request of the police department. If you're going to be out of town for an extended period of time or something like that, you can always call and ask for property checks on your home while you're away. Maybe not broadcast that you're going to be away, but you can tell the police department. Should be safe there. We also had a really encouraging letter from the high school principal. There was an incident and they needed to get assistance from the department, and one of our officers was already present because she's active at the school and this leadership class. So her presence was already at the school and she was able to help out, and other officers responded. It was just a really nice letter complimenting the department on how well they responded professionally and calmly, and everything played out very, very well in what could have been a really tense, tough situation. But so the high school principal wrote Chief Nelson a really nice letter complimenting him and the conduct of our officers. So they were really thankful. And again, just a lot of the reason it went smoothly was because there's already a familiarity with our officers in the district with the students. So it wasn't a scary intervention, which I think is really important, really goes back to Chief Nelson's vision of having our officers more involved in the community. I don't have the specifics of all that. I read through the paperwork and they're on a few different topics, but they are all due March 11th. So we're actively pursuing these grants to support the department. And we also have some money to use for traffic. It has to be used before May. So that's essentially a focus on vehicle traffic law, cracking down on seatbelts, people who are on their phones and texting. So sometime between, probably more into the spring, a couple extra people will be on duty looking to crack down on exactly that. So that's a warning to all of you that may be driving around the village looking at your phones. Okay, so you've been warned. Regarding the chamber, the chamber elected officers for the year. Lane Springer will return as president, I believe, for one final year. Steve Daly of Ithaca Vintage will be the new vice president. We talked about the excitement and hopefully some belief is we are going to be hosting the state championships again. If anyone here wants to officially confirm.
Officially confirmed.
So yeah, so that's so talked about that. More of a marketing, social media is part of more of a part-time as a position would lead to a lot more engagement with businesses and members, and get more membership in and support members more consistently. 2020 is 50 years of the Gem Shop, so you'll probably be seeing some information, anything you have from the years. Tammy, if you got any from opening day, be sure to share them with us. One last thing, we talked about, this is actually an idea I threw at them because they have chamber dinner usually in November. I think what we're seeing is more community recognition. We had the village and town recognize some people. We've had our new award that with the Freddie Award and some other awards that we've handed out. So I pitched the idea of kind of making the T-Berg award ceremony because while it's open to anybody, the feeling I always get is at the chamber dinner, people feel like you have to be or involved in business to actually attend. And if you're not, you're gonna feel like an outsider. So, we've done and this would be more an opportunity to widen that net a little bit more and kind of break the whole community and not make it just about businesses. Because if you were at the last one, people kind of went around the room and shared their stories about how they got to Trumansburg, and you realize I think there's a lot of potential there to make it more of a honoring of the local community, greater Trumansburg, than just solely focused on a business angle. So that's something that would require bigger planning. So we're starting that discussion now.
I think that there's a lot of organizations also that are out there that the general public just is not aware of, like taking care of T-Berg. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you're really looking for something to do you know that it's out there? Do you recognize who's put that effort in? I think it's an excellent time I like the idea of expanding it to be a recognition of Trumansburg.
Yeah, because there's always one organization that's recognized, but you don't get everybody in the same room kind of thing.
Right.
And be nice to kind of highlight that and even recognize sponsors. I mean, we have so many events that sponsors come into play and play a huge role in, but we don't really ever recognize,
Is
those
there a
sponsors.
concise list of Trumansburg organizations anywhere? Does anybody market that? Is there a flyer?
Well, we definitely have chamber members, but yeah, in terms of organizations, nonprofit.
Your efforts so people could, when the parents move back, that they
Consider.
I said, I'm not owning it, but I.
So there are.
Are you, getting back to the welcome package? I know that had been talked about a couple times.
That's held up on my desk.
I finished.
Just or weeks, months.
Yeah,
What-
weeks, months, days.
This comes, like, there's
Well, it was last year.
our service groups or volunteer groups are really the core piece of the strength of the village, and promoting them in some way more, maybe through the welcoming packet or through other ways, just in general. I like it. I feel like it dovetails with,
It's
the
not
goal
in
for
the- Close to it, it's just not there.
and that's fine,
Yeah.
but I'm now in the place of looking for action items to put in the comp plan around all these things, how do we as a government help strengthen those service group or entities, but what can we do to kind of promote them?
Oh, and Main Street Market is open and running, and it's a nice place.
Very good. I've had dinner,
Yeah.
had dinner there on Saturday.
What's that?
And asking for a sign variance.
So, yeah, might be the only local place that you're going to find ice cream in the winter and beer and cider. And I think they have music every Thursday night as of right
Your
now.
reviews have been pretty phenomenal.
And that's coming from you. So,
Haven't been there yet.
oh, so you're just guessing? Or you're just going by the band names?
Really?
Okay, all right.
Anything else for police or TACC?
Nope, that'll do.
I did want to ask if there'd been anyone biting at the position for the crossing guard.
We're going to get to that in a second.
Fantastic.
That's new.
Treasurer.
journal entries did not get to me for the end of the close. This year they did. They are all completed except for 2, and we're having just a little software issue that Dwayne's. I do have 2, one permissive referendum, one is for the Zoll's monitors. Even though the contract is a 3-year agreement, we pay it every year. Resolution to take $4,810 out of the EMS maintenance agreement reserve in order to pay this.
This is a maintenance agreement, annually paid maintenance agreement for the monitors.
What was the number again?
48.
Yeah, 4810.
Similar to the maintenance agreement we paid 2 months ago for the stretcher.
Am I looking at the wrong one? Because it says to add additional door keys.
It does,
No.
doesn't it?
No,
Should be 9.e.1 in the Dropbox.
It's the right number.
I mean, if we're gonna have door
4810.
keys are important.
I am,
are you sure you're right?
No, I'm seeing the same thing. EMS Zoll maintenance monitors, just the document in the in Dropbox.
I didn't number them today, so. I'm not
No,
sure.
they're, well, I'm saying it is right. Mine says
Is
Zoll,
this,
mine says Zoll maintenance. Who can see that on that old?
well, do you know how to
That's
zoom in? What did you say?
right.
Because it says to add additional door key entrances.
Does it really?
The
Oh,
second-
I'm really.
Second to
sorry.
last sentence.
yeah.
Oh,
There
okay,
it
well,
is.
there you go. I will fix that. I do apologize.
I vote nay.
But anyway, so I move that we approve $4,810 from the EMS maintenance agreement reserve for the Zoll monitors contract subject to.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion? If not, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The second thing is budget modifications for 18-19, so we can complete, our audit. And what these are is if, budget line is overexpended, another budget line is underexpended, we basically take money from one line to the other. This includes, revenue too, especially if we've earned more revenue than we had budgeted for, which we did. So these need to be approved by the board for audit to be completed. And with everything that happened personally with me this summer and things got away, I didn't get them to you.
So the budget mod request, so there's a number of tabs here. Are we supposed to be looking at a
Yes.
specific one or all of them?
All of them, yeah. They're on like a spreadsheet,
Right.
and I think the tabs say,
All of them?
all of them, yeah. They're on like a spreadsheet,
Right.
and I think the tabs say revenue A, which is the A fund.
Is the September date correct?
Yes, because that's when I did them. A, which is the A fund.
Is the September date correct?
Yes, because that's when I did them. Because we had abstract 15, so I had to wait.
Dwayne has reviewed these.
Yes, he has.
So I would entertain a motion to accept these budget modifications as prepared by the village treasurer and reviewed by our auditor.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
When we get into budget season for next budget, we base that off the revised that we get that we kind of look at?
No, not the revised amount. What I generally do, Ben, is I'll give you what we actually adopted.
Mhm.
And-
If not, then all in favor, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
The next thing is, this Ben spoke about with the MOU for the town of Ulysses. I'd like to request that we close our summer rec reserve in the near future, as soon as Ben and Nancy come up with a
Yep.
number, but it'll be before our next meeting, I'm sure, so if we can close that account.
Yeah, it'll probably be next week.
I
But
mean,
in
I
any
don't-
case, this is all just, it's from the MOU, so this is already something that we've
Right.
agreed to do, and this is just followed.
Right, I just need the
Yeah.
approval of the board to close that.
Yeah, so I move that we close the, where are we? Summer recreation reserve and transfer the total to the town of Ulysses.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Comments, questions? If not, then all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed?
I know Royden's gonna make the set dates for our budget meetings, and I will work on the budget. I have the bank statements. I will close December in the next week, I'll say, and, I'll fix the budget and get it out. It'll be in the Dropbox for the budget. I've gotten a lot of, like, if our payments are different for garbage and different things. So that I will send out probably next week, we'll send out to the department heads their requests. Are you going to have them come in? I know, I don't think we did that last year. They sent the request. Okay, well, whatever, just not, I mean, so I'll get that to them. I will be out of the office Wednesday afternoon, and I'll be out Friday through next Wednesday. I have to take her to Keith school, and that's a process. Other than that, I continue to work on the NICEAG thing. I do one or two, Ben, when I can, to catch it up. I'm sorry. I don't want to
Appreciate
say it's not a priority, but, no, it's, yeah.
But it's not. No, it's fine. I thought about it just yesterday. I was like, oh, what have I got to do? But so I appreciate the update, but
I do. I try when when we have time. I think other than that, it's budget season, so we'll be working on that. I think I talked to Morgan about kind of bringing Morgan in a little bit this year, because I only really had 3 more years to do it. So to work a little more with her on the budget, so she knows how the process works. I think that's it. To work a little more with her on the budget, so she knows how the process works. I think that's it.
1099s.
That done, went out today. Oh, you were there. You did not help us stuff the envelopes. 1099's are out.
Anything else for Vicky? Okay, senior.
I don't have a lot. It seems to be the month of December, and what has been now the part of January has been just a bunch of human resource stuff. Getting my desk cleared of some stuff that was sitting, I took some time off from the holidays and hopefully I'm not going to do that again. Repercussions. So unless somebody's got questions about something specific, I don't really have anything to. Morgan finished her first semester with a 4.0. Yay, Morgan!
That's impressive.
Moving on.
Nice job.
Here comes the State of the Village, our favorite Saturday of the whole year.
Postcards are going out this week.
Postcards will be in the mailboxes,
Wednesday, that was,
yes, after I come off the board pro tomorrow. Yes, after I come off the board pro tomorrow. We'll get the labels on them and they will be in the post office Wednesday by 5.
Questions for Tammy? Just a couple of items that I want to mention. I'm doing kind of annual department head sit-downs. Met with Chief Nelson and of course, Chris Fox, beginning of the month. I met with Dusty last week just to kind of go over if there's anything they need, see if there's any, what does 2020 look like as far as they're concerned. I'm meeting with the front office folks at the end of the month. And Ben and I are meeting with the fire chief and the deputy chief here the next week, I think.
I think so.
In talking with Chief Nelson, a couple of quick items. I think that you might have missed this last month. There was a question about the need for new body cams. The current ones we have are not holding a charge and slowed out load. And Chief had priced out very expensive body cams. And part of the reason was due to the new bail reform laws, the need to have the video uploaded to the cloud so it's accessible by the DA's office within the 96-hour window that the law requires, is part of the reason for the higher end use. He has since been requested by the DA's office to hold off on the purchase of anything new because if we don't have video, there's nothing to turn over. So that puts a little bit of an interest at their disposal. And there is grant money available for it, but the DA is not sure how they can, at this time anyway, the DA's office is not sure how they can adequately have us comply with the law. So they would just as soon us not purchase those just yet until they figure the law. So they would just as soon us not purchase those just yet until they figured out how to navigate that.
Is this a homeowner?
I don't,
Yes.
I do not,
It's a bail reform.
So if
no, I
there,
know that,
if there is, part of what's included in the bail reform law is a shortened discovery period.
understood.
If there is body camera footage that's not available to the DA's office to turn over
Right,
within that 96-hour window, then essentially the charges are thrown out. The DA's office sounds like, and I'm getting this third hand, sounds like they do not have the personnel to possibly process that information through discovery in time. So if some of the information like video footage is simply doesn't exist, now there's nothing to turn over. You don't have to comply with that discovery, that piece of the discovery requirement, because the evidence, if you turn over all the evidence, you turn over all the evidence. If video, which is time consuming, is part of that, then it extends their need for personnel and or time frames. Both. It's a technology problem for us. It's a human resource problem for them.
are they willing, if we don't have the film, are they willing to pick up our liability if anything happens and we don't have cameras?
No.
That's
back-
the first thing.
That's a
The
back,
second thing is, so this just seems like another something to add on to the fact that they had 10,000 cases they didn't process. I know it was IPD,
DA's
but
office, but
if they couldn't, if they didn't get those 10,000, we're gonna process them if we can't even give them current cases.
I think the DA's office is in a bit of a bind because they want to prosecute cases. And if there's something that can get cases thrown out, they're trying to figure out how to juggle that. I think they'll have to. They're trying to figure out how to juggle that. I think they'll have to. They'll come up with a procedure. They'll hire a bunch more people. What it really amounts to, not to get out in the weeds too much, what it really amounts to is yet another backhanded unfunded mandate, which everyone has to spend a lot more money if you're going to be able to comply with this stuff.
I mean,
I mean, it's $30,000 of body cams for us. It's 3 or 4 more people on payroll at the DA's office. So we'll see how that plays out. Chief just wanted us to know that we don't have to get nervous about spending that money this month. We'll hold off. On the good news side, the school has committed to picking up half the tab for a new crossing guard. So they're very eager and happy that we're looking at Wig and South Street intersection. The business manager's on board, their superintendent's on board. The school board will have to sign off on it, but I don't see that that's an issue, so they'll pick up half the tab for that. We have had several applicants, and not a one of them lives nearby. So there's a timing issue for whether someone can take a shift in an afternoon, or a shift in an afternoon. Strongly encourage them. We should volunteer them to apply.
May and June, September, October.
Going to be a crossing guard in July and August, is what you're saying.
Okay.
Come on, Rick Darkler, you live right there.
Are we gonna hold the personnel on that and then build the school?
Yes. We have to.
Okay.
Technically, your police department employee.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's department head meetings, chief. It looks like we are going to get the go-ahead to apply for some grant money through our Lifton's office, Assemblywoman Lifton's office, for stormwater and drainage. It's not a huge dollar amount, but it's enough to possibly take care of, for which we get numerous phone calls and emails, and have for this past several years. We have to stay within the village right of way, but at least 3 of the sites I'm thinking of, a lot can be done if we upsize some culverts and move the water downstream. So it sounds promising. What had sounded initially, and Keith thinking of, a lot can be done if we upsize some culverts and move the water downstream. So it sounds promising. What had sounded initially, and Keith spearheaded this initially, and I've been talking to their office the last couple of weeks. What sounded like money sitting in a safe that could just be handed over to us is actually DASNY money. So it's Dormitory Authority money, which is some of where the Main Street project money came from. So it's a bit longer of a process, but it sounds promising. So I'll keep everyone posted on that. And then over the next 2 or 3 weeks, I have some meetings scheduled with several legislators at several different levels from several different parties and several different branches of government. And I'm starting my 2020 Give Us Money for Fire and EMS roadshow. We'll see how it goes, but
That's in your 8 hours a month, right?
I think it's supposed to be 4 hours a month.
Is that-
Yeah.
We're letting
So I
them
will
know.
certainly let you know if we get any good news from anyone.
We'll get 'em.
Item number 10 is old business. I don't think we,
Sorry, actually, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask Tammy a question. For the state of the village, I've been chatting with all the papers for all the CPZR stuff. Would you like me to ask them to cover all these stuff, or I didn't know if that's something you already do, talk to like sewer, like the people that write all the kind of local columns.
if there's anything to add to old business that anyone has thought of in the last couple hours.
Jim Coyne.
Swear to.
I don't know if that
Yeah.
needs,
Sign it.
yeah, that could just,
Yeah.
oh, we've
He
already,
just needs to sign it, redate it.
okay.
We've already approved it. New business. My favorite local law to introduce every single year is local law number 1 of 2020, which is a local law pursuant to General Municipal Law Section 3C, which gives the village the authority to override its tax levy limitations if so needed. This is simply an introduction of this law, which we will hold the public hearing for at our February meeting. If anyone present or on video has questions about this, they can certainly direct it to me. I'm happy to talk about Albany anytime. Next item under new business is we should, because we have not done anything about it in coming up on 2 years, just determine how we want to handle the zoning officer position. There is a combined code and zoning officer full-time job description, which is really the only one we can use if we want the same individual to do both. And if we're interested in pursuing that, then now would be a good time. I don't know that there's any reason not to, except that it does add additional benefits and workers' comp related expenses because it is a full-time position instead of 2 part-time positions.
We should have most of it because we haven't paid anything so year.
But in terms of budgeting for it for next,
Right.
it'll be a bump. So I wanted to bring it up to see if there's any objection to the notion. Specifics about applicants, we can talk about in executive session at the end. But it would be, it is a public discussion whether we make two part-time positions potentially into 1 full-time position.
We need zoning
What was
officer,
that?
and
Yeah.
we need a zoning officer, and we haven't seemed to be able to get one.
Yeah.
Well, what we're doing, so I think I'm open to trying to dangle a different hook and see what we catch.
What is
And how
the,
do we supplement the efforts? Because obviously at certain times, one side or the other are much more significantly busy, and we do need to supplement. Is there a way?
glad you asked. Item C under new business. In speaking with Tom about if we went in this direction, how he would see, I basically asked him in this department head annual sit down, how would he structure it? And he said, well, if you can't find 2 part-timers, then potentially having 1 full-time person doing code and zoning would be good. But then if you had someone dedicated to doing the annual fire inspections on the commercial properties, which are required to be inspected annually, and for a while there, for in fact a number of years, we kind of fell behind that cycle. But we're more or less caught up.
Weren't we structured that way already? I mean, didn't Hamilton? I thought-
Yeah, we've had people help out when Tom got behind. But Tom suggested that we have someone who does that.
Just,
Lucas Albersman, who does the fire inspection for the town, is an Ithaca City firefighter, and a local kid, born and raised, came up to me a couple of months ago and said, when's the village going to hire me as their fire inspector? I don't know that we need one. Well, we might need one. I think it's about 10 hours. How much is he giving the town? About 10 hours a week?
Yeah. it fluctuates
Depending on the-
a bit around that, yeah, not much.
He said it was not more than 10 hours a week he was giving the town, and he could easily come up with that for the village. He's really good. He's really, he's young, but he's really, really good. When Deb meets him, she'll think that,
he's younger.
He's like,
What?
yeah.
can you be?
Yeah, he's younger than Morgan.
He's like 2 years old.
Right.
You're on public.
He's really good, and he's interested in it. So that would be, as an example, one way that we can kind of make sure that there's enough people to cover the work, and that would be just strictly a 10-hour a week.
Is it really 10 hours worth of fire inspection in the village?
Not year round.
Cyclic. It's
Yeah.
very cyclical.
I think it's probably spread it out. Get 10 hours a week for
Well, then, I don't.
6 months.
Yeah, and I don't know what the fire inspection, what the new project, what 46 South Street is gonna do. I mean, for the code and zoning, it's gonna be
Insane.
flat out.
So that would be one way to manage kind of the ebb and flow.
Does he also want to be a crossing guard?
Probably not.
Just
But I could
October
ask.
through March.
It'd be nice to start the day and end the day in the same spot.
So we can discuss specifics of the personalities in the executive session, but that would be kind of the way to spend it.
Understood.
Last item I have under new business is we do need to pick some dates to tackle another budget.
So, you do it in how many?
This same getting bored a lot of time.
Does that mean we're not getting a doodle poll?
No, doodle poll. Or just written on
Or use the doodle tonight?
So we have our March meeting, which is the 9th, which is kind of our drop, I won't call it a drop dead date, but that's when we like to have it finalized, but we should have one more meeting in March just in case, just in case. And then if we could use part of our February meeting, and then have one other February meeting, then that would give us 4 if we needed it. And I think we'll need probably,
You want February 10th and March 9th.
And then you 2 in between. 2 in between.
The 17th is a holiday, and I was gonna take the 18th off to go.
how does the Gemma Shop 50th anniversary day, the 27th?
I will be in Florida.
That's the planning board, right?
It's also
How about earlier that week? Still Florida.
Yeah, I'm out the Monday that week through,
So
the next
year.
Wednesday.
And I'm not the
I'm
week-
pulling a Ben Carver. I'm just gonna be out in Florida for,
That's the way to do it, budget season.
for budget
Gotta go.
season.
The 20th?
So school break is the 17th through the 21st.
Right. Which is why I can't go there. It's way too expensive to fly during that week.
Oh, you have to wait till the next.
Yeah, you gotta go next week.
How about the week of March 2nd?
That's fine.
Could do later in the week.
Because if we did,
Oh. Maybe.
Are you snowbirding now?
It's the last week of February through the middle of the first week of March.
No.
Gotta make it count when you're out.
so if we got a draft budget from Vicky by our February meeting,
Which is,
the 10th,
10th.
the time.
then we can plug in department head information. We'll have all the department head information no later than the first week of March.
Okay,
So we would need to do like Thursday, the 5th, back to back with our Monday, the 9th meeting.
No,
you want March 5th?
that's better than 9. That's, for me, that's better than February too.
Right.
I'm really busy in
February.
February.
Yeah, the 5th is fine. with me.
Maybe that
So we'd be looking at March 5th, March 9th,
And then March something.
and then a TBD. Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you.
Let's TBD, how does, oh, wait, Deb.
Should we go for 6 or 7 on the 5th?
I'm sorry,
6 on the 5th? Sort of
6
normal.
o'clock, March, Thursday. That should work.
9th regular time, February regular time.
February meeting is a regular time, possibly with the towns prior.
All right, all right.
Thursday, March 5th, 6 p.m.
Fine day.
Final meeting on March 17th, when where's green,
Hmm.
talk about green.
Only through deal, no alcohol, no property.
March 9th is our regular meeting. We'll talk budget as well. Deb, how's the week of March, or everyone, how does the week of March 23rd look?
23rd. That's fine with me. I don't have anything in March.
Monday, March 23rd.
Check.
I think that I
Works
work
for me.
sometime, but I'll figure it out.
Good for me.
And that's, that, right, that's just a TBD day? Or are we scheduling
We
it?
schedule it and then we'll cancel it if we don't need it.
Yeah, I gotta double check that.
At 6?
Could be a week there where I don't know. What day we talking, 23rd?
Monday, March 23.
Should probably be okay.
So those air source heat pumps are, way too much heat.
I feel like
I turned it down.
Oh, I turned it back up, sorry.
Oh, you
It
did?
was too loud.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's the first time I've been home in a year and a half.
Come on.
You were hot at the last meeting. We made jokes about it. It was a thing.
What did you say?
You were hot at the last meeting and we made jokes about it. and it was-
Just work out of here.
So does that sound good? We'll get
Stories
preliminary
full of holes.
skeleton budget
You went-
from Vicky by our February
Or Feb.
10th meeting. We can look at it at our February 10th meeting. We can look at it at our February 10th meeting. Should have. We should have budget versus actual through the end of January at that point. Have all department head requests plugged into this first week of March. We'll meet the 5th and 9th and the 23rd. Sound good?
That works for me.
It's exciting. We have another budget season.
Where are those eyes in March?
How many is this doing?
Item number 12, approval of abstracts. We have a general fund abstract in the amount of $323,976.46.
I move that we pay that abstract from the general fund.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have EMS billing abstracts, $11,388.81.
Move that we approve that EMS billing abstract.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Water fund, $46,391.02.
I move that we pay the water fund.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Sewer fund, $27,131.41.
I move that we pay $27,131.41 from the sewer fund.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And last but not least, trust and agency, $7,168.21.
I move that we pay this abstract from trust and agency.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Second public comment period. Any secondary comments from those remaining? Going once, twice. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss police and front office personnel.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. A little bit of emphasis on the lack of EMS in there.
Yes.
I feel like we should
First time in like 9 years.
talk about that for a while.